There is a moment just before the day fully wakes up, when the world is still quiet and your soul is most honest. It is in that space that prayer becomes more than words. It becomes alignment. Before the noise, before the demands, before the expectations begin to pull at your attention, there is an invitation to pause and acknowledge that this day is not sustained by your strength alone. This morning we come not because we are strong, but because we understand that without divine help, even the strongest plans can collapse. We come recognizing that destiny is not managed by effort alone, but by alignment. And so, before you step into responsibilities, conversations, decisions, and pressures, you choose to first step into the presence that orders all things. Father, we thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the mercy that allowed us to see this morning. Thank you because the fact that we are breathing is proof that purpose is still active. As this day begins, we refuse to rush ahead without you. We acknowledge you as the source of wisdom, strength, and direction. We surrender this day completely. Every hour, every meeting, every thought, every step, we lay down our plans, not because planning is wrong, but because we understand that guidance is higher than intention. Let this day not be controlled by impulse or pressure. Let it be governed by divine order. We ask that you go ahead of us. Where confusion waits, establish clarity. Where resistance waits, release favor. Where fear has tried to gain access to our minds, let your peace stand guard. We declare that anxiety will not lead today. Distraction will not dominate today. Weariness will not have the final say. Strengthen us for battles we cannot explain and challenges we cannot predict. Some struggles do not announce themselves, but we ask for grace that speaks before words fail. Give us emotional stability, mental clarity, and spiritual alertness. Let us not react out of pain, pride, or pressure. Teach our hearts restraint and our mouths wisdom. As we step into the world today, sharpen our discernment. Help us to know what to accept and what to decline, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to move and when to wait. Protect us from costly mistakes born out of haste. Let us recognize divine instructions even when they come quietly. We ask for authority over every form of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of delay, fear of the unknown. We declare that fear will not determine our decisions today. Courage will rise from conviction, not from noise. Confidence will come from knowing you are with us. Align us with the right people and disconnect us from the wrong influences. Let conversations carry grace. Let our presence bring peace, not tension. Where we are misunderstood, give us patience. Where we are celebrated, keep us humble. Let character speak louder than ambition. Preserve us as we move through this day. Preserve our minds from negative cycles of thought. Preserve our bodies from exhaustion. Preserve our hearts from offense and bitterness. Let us not carry weights we were never designed to carry. Give us sensitivity to your voice, not just in moments of prayer, but in the ordinary flow of the day, in small nudges, inner checks, quiet instructions. Let us not ignore you because of busyness. Teach us to recognize you even in routine. We ask that our lives today reflect light. Let integrity guide our actions. Let excellence mark our work. Let compassion define our interactions. May people encounter hope, peace, and sincerity through us, even if we never speak about it. And when this day begins to close, let us not end it empty or regretful. Let us return fulfilled, knowing we walked in alignment, not just activity. Knowing we honored you not only with words, but with obedience. We commit this day into your hands. We receive strength, wisdom, favor, and peace. And we step forward, not alone, not afraid, but guided, guarded, and empowered. The early morning carries a sacred weight that many people overlook. It is not just the beginning of a new day. It is a spiritual window where the soul is most receptive and the heart is least distracted. Before voices begin to demand attention, before responsibilities start pulling at the mind, there is a quiet openness within a person. In that stillness, thoughts are not yet crowded, emotions are not yet stirred, and the heart is more honest about its dependence. This is why alignment in the morning matters so deeply. What you acknowledge first often sets the tone for everything that follows. Morning prayer is not powerful because of the hour itself, but because of what the hour represents. It represents surrender before struggle, wisdom before decision, and dependence before effort. When a person begins the day without spiritual alignment, they unknowingly allow the day to define them. Pressure begins to dictate emotions, urgency controls reactions, and fatigue slowly takes authority. But when alignment happens early, the soul is anchored before the storm. The heart is reminded that life is not carried by strength alone, and destiny is not preserved by speed or ambition. There is also a spiritual sensitivity that exists in the early hours. The heart is quieter, and because of that, perception is sharper. Instructions that may be missed later in the noise of the day are easier to discern in the morning. Convictions are clearer. Direction is purer. Mind is less defensive and more teachable. This is why morning alignment often protects people from errors they never realized they avoided. It is not always about what happens, but about what does not happen, because guidance came early. The morning also establishes authority. When prayer comes first, it declares that spiritual reality governs natural events. It is a statement that emotions will not lead, pressure will not rule, and fear will not decide outcomes. Instead of reacting to life, the aligned heart responds from a place of peace. Strength is drawn before weakness appears. Grace is received before challenges manifest. This does not remove difficulties, but it changes how they are faced. Alignment in the morning is also an act of trust. It says that productivity is not more important than presence, and success is not higher than obedience. It shifts the focus from survival to purpose. Over time, this discipline reshapes character, stabilizes emotions, and builds spiritual endurance. The day may still be demanding, but the soul is no longer fragile because it has already been positioned in truth and peace before the first demand ever arrived. Many people approach prayer as an act of speaking, but its deeper essence is positioning. Words alone do not change realities unless the heart is properly aligned. Prayer is not primarily about informing God of needs or persuading him to act. It is about placing the soul in the correct posture to receive direction, strength, and grace. When prayer is reduced to speech, it becomes repetitive and shallow. But when it is understood as positioning, it becomes transformational. Positioning begins with recognition. In prayer, a person acknowledges authority, order, and dependence. This recognition quietly rearranges the inner world. Pride softens, self-sufficiency loses its grip, and the heart becomes teachable. Without this inner adjustment, even sincere prayers can leave a person unchanged. But when the heart bows inwardly, clarity replaces confusion, and peace settles where restlessness once lived. Prayer as positioning also involves alignment of will. Often, the greatest conflicts are not external, but internal. Desires pull in different directions, emotions compete with convictions, and fear negotiates with faith. In prayer, these inner tensions are brought into alignment. The heart learns to release control and yield to higher wisdom. This surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It positions a person under guidance rather than pressure, under instruction rather than impulse. Another dimension of positioning is awareness. Prayer sharpens spiritual consciousness. It tunes the heart to perceive subtle instructions and inner checks that would otherwise be ignored. When a person prays with the understanding of positioning, they are not rushing to speak. They are learning to listen. Silence becomes as valuable as words. In that stillness, direction is formed, restraint is taught, and discernment is refined. This is why prayer often changes decisions before it changes circumstances. Positioning through prayer also establishes authority. When a person aligns with truth, they stand on stable ground. Fear loses influence, anxiety weakens, and confusion fades. Not because challenges disappear, but because the heart is no longer disoriented. Prayer positions the soul above chaos, not in escape, but in perspective. From that position, reactions become measured and responses become wise. Over time, this understanding reshapes how life is lived. Prayer is no longer reserved for emergencies, it becomes a daily posture. Decisions are approached with humility. Conversations are handled with restraint, and pressures are faced with calm as strength. The person who prays this way is not merely asking for help, they are allowing themselves to be formed. This is why prayer when understood as positioning, changes the one who prays before it ever changes the situation around them. Surrendering the day before it begins is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood spiritual practices. Many people think surrender means giving up effort or ambition, but in truth, it means releasing the illusion of control. The human heart often wakes up already planning, worrying, and defending itself against outcomes that have not yet happened. This silent tension shapes the day before the first action is taken. Surrender interrupts that pattern. It is a deliberate decision to place the weight of the day into higher hands before pressure arrives. When a person does not surrender early, the day begins with resistance. Every delay feels personal, every challenge feels threatening, and every uncertainty feels overwhelming. But when surrender comes first, the heart becomes flexible instead of rigid. It accepts that not everything will go according to plan, and that this does not mean failure. This posture brings emotional stability. It allows a person to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, because the heart is no longer trying to protect its own control at all costs. Surrendering the day is also an act of trust. It says that guidance is greater than prediction and wisdom is higher than strategy. It acknowledges that even the best plans need direction. This does not cancel responsibility, it refines it. Effort becomes purposeful instead of anxious. Work becomes focused instead of frantic. Decisions are made with patience rather than fear of missing out. In surrender, the heart learns to move without panic. There is also freedom that comes with early surrender. Many burdens people carry are not assigned to them. They are self-imposed. The pressure to prove, to impress, to fix everything, and to always be strong slowly drains the soul. Surrender releases these unnecessary weights. It gives permission to be human, to need help, and to move at the pace of grace rather than the pace of fear. This freedom creates space for clarity and creativity to emerge. Surrendering the day before it begins also prepares the heart for interruptions. Life rarely unfolds exactly as expected. Conversations change direction, plans are delayed, and challenges appear unannounced. A surrendered heart is not easily shaken by these shifts. It understands that redirection is not rejection and delay is not denial. This perspective protects peace. Over time, daily surrender reshapes the inner life. It trains the heart to rely less on self and more on divine wisdom. It builds endurance without hardening the spirit. The day may still be demanding, but it no longer feels like a burden that must be carried alone. It becomes a journey guided by trust, steadied by peace, and sustained by grace. Every day carries a mixture of order and chaos, whether it is visible or hidden. Uncertainty, unexpected conversations, emotional triggers, and unseen spiritual pressures often compete for control. Inviting divine order is not a denial of chaos, but an acknowledgement that chaos does not have the right to rule. Without this invitation, the heart easily becomes reactive, moving from one disruption to another without clarity or peace. Divine order establishes a governing structure within the soul before external disorder attempts to dominate. Chaos often enters quietly through the mind. It shows up as scattered thoughts, restlessness, and a sense of urgency without direction. When divine order is invited, the inner world is arranged, thoughts become clearer, priorities are sorted, and the heart gains a sense of direction. This does not mean everything becomes easy, but it means nothing feels random. Even challenges are understood within a framework of purpose rather than confusion. Inviting divine order also affects decision making. Many errors are not caused by ignorance, but by emotional pressure. When chaos governs the heart, decisions are rushed, words are careless, and reactions are fueled by fear or frustration. Divine order slows the soul enough to choose wisely. It brings restraint where impulse would normally lead, and patience where haste would normally dominate. This inner arrangement often prevents damage before it ever occurs. There is also peace that flows from order. Peace is not the absence of activity, but the presence of stability. When divine order is established, peace becomes a constant reference point, even in demanding moments. This peace acts as a guard over emotions. It keeps the heart from swinging between extremes of excitement and despair. With this stability, a person is able to remain consistent regardless of circumstances. Inviting divine order over chaos also aligns timing. Many frustrations come not from wrong actions, but from right actions taken at the wrong time. Divine order teaches the heart when to act, when to wait, and when to let go. It protects from unnecessary struggle and wasted effort. The day unfolds with rhythm rather than strain, with intentionality rather than survival. Over time, this practice transforms the inner life. The soul becomes less noisy and more grounded. Confidence replaces anxiety, not because outcomes are guaranteed, but because direction is trusted. Life may still present complexity, but it no longer feels overwhelming. Order does not remove challenges, it gives them context. And within that context, the heart learns to move forward with clarity, calm strength, and unwavering assurance that chaos does not have the fin. Word. Many of the battles people fight each day are never spoken about, and often never even fully understood. They are not always visible conflicts, but internal struggles that weigh on the mind and emotions. These hidden battles show up as quiet discouragement, unexplained heaviness, persistent doubts, emotional fatigue, and the pressure to keep going when strength feels depleted. Because they are unseen, they are often dismissed, yet they shape behavior, decisions, and perspective more than external challenges ever could. Strength for these battles cannot be manufactured by willpower alone. The human soul was not designed to constantly absorb pressure without renewal. When strength is not replenished, people begin to operate in survival mode. They react instead of respond, withdraw instead of engage, and harden instead of heal. Morning prayer becomes a place where strength is received before weakness is exposed. It is a moment of honest exchange where fragility is acknowledged and grace is drawn. Hidden battles often intensify when they are ignored. Unaddressed emotional wounds, unresolved fear, and accumulated disappointment slowly drain energy. Over time, even small tasks feel overwhelming. Strength in this context is not about becoming tougher, it is about becoming supported. Divine strength does not remove sensitivity, it sustains it. It allows a person to remain open-hearted without being crushed by pressure. There is also clarity that comes with strength. When the soul is weary, perspective narrows. Everything feels urgent, personal, and heavy. Strength restores vision. It helps the heart distinguish between what truly matters and what only feels loud. This clarity prevents unnecessary emotional spending on issues that do not deserve that level of energy. It brings focus back to purpose. Strength for hidden battles also produces endurance. Many challenges are not resolved quickly. They require patience, consistency, and hope over time. Without renewed strength, people quit internally long before they stop externally. They continue functioning, but joy fades and passion dulls. Divine strength renews the inner life. It keeps the heart alive even when answers are delayed. As this strength becomes a daily experience, something shifts. The person becomes less reactive and more resilient. They no longer carry every weight alone. Even when battles remain unseen, they are no longer fought in isolation. Strength becomes a quiet companion, steady and reliable. The day may still demand much, but the soul is no longer empty. It is upheld, reinforced, and empowered to move forward with courage, patience, and inner stability. Wisdom, discernment, and restraint are quiet virtues that often determine the quality of a person's life more than talent or opportunity. Many difficulties are not the result of lack of effort, but of decisions made without insight. Words spoken too quickly, choices made too emotionally, and actions taken without reflection often create wounds that take much longer to heal than they took to form. Grace in this area is not about becoming perfect, but about being guided. Wisdom allows a person to see beyond the immediate. It gives the ability to look past how something feels in the moment and recognize where it leads. Without wisdom, urgency masquerades as importance and pressure feels like instruction. Discernment then adds depth to wisdom by helping the heart recognize what is truly being presented. Not every opportunity is beneficial. Not every voice is safe, and not every reaction is necessary. Discernment quietly filters what the mind receives and what the heart responds to. Restraint is the visible expression of inner wisdom. It is the strength to pause when emotion demands expression and to wait when impatience pushes for action. Restraint does not weaken a person, it preserves them. Many relationships, reputations, and destinies are damaged not by great mistakes, but by small, unrestrained moments. Grace for restraint protects the future by honoring the present. This grace is especially important in a fast-paced world that rewards reaction. The pressure to respond immediately, to prove oneself, and to defend every opinion creates constant tension. Without grace, people live on the edge of emotional exhaustion. With grace, the heart learns that silence can be powerful, waiting can be wise, and humility can be protective. Wisdom, discernment, and restraint also shape character. They produce consistency instead of volatility. They allow a person to remain steady even when circumstances shift. This steadiness builds trust with others and confidence within oneself. It creates a life that is not easily shaken by offense, criticism, or praise. Over time, this grace changes how challenges are handled. Conflict is approached with understanding rather than aggression. Decisions are made with peace rather than fear. Boundaries are established without guilt. The soul becomes less reactive and more reflective. Life does not become simpler, but it becomes clearer. When a person walks in this grace, their steps are measured, their words are thoughtful, and their actions are intentional. They move through life with quiet authority, not because they control everything, but because they are guided. And in that guidance, wisdom leads, discernment clarifies, and restraint preserves what truly matters. Wisdom, discernment, and restraint are quiet virtues that often determine the quality of a person's life more than talent or opportunity. Many difficulties are not the result of lack of effort, but of decisions made without insight. Words spoken too quickly, choices made too emotive, on unchecked thought patterns. When the mind is allowed to wander endlessly through imagined futures, peace is eroded. Authority restores order to thought. It brings the mind back to the present moment and redirects focus to what can actually be done now. This discipline calms the nervous system and restores emotional balance. Distraction, though often overlooked, is one of the most subtle enemies of authority. It fragments attention and weakens commitment. A distracted heart is easily overwhelmed because it never fully engages with any one thing. Authority over distraction comes from intentional focus. It is the ability to remain present, to listen deeply, and to complete what matters. This focus brings efficiency without strain. As authority over these areas grows, something shifts internally. Decisions become clearer. Emotions become more stable. The constant inner noise begins to quiet. Life no longer feels like a series of emergencies competing for attention. Instead, there is a sense of direction and calm strength. This authority does not eliminate challenges, but it changes how they are faced. Fear loses its grip, anxiety loses its urgency, and distraction loses its power. The heart learns to stand steady. In that steadiness, confidence rises, peace settles, and the day is lived with intention rather than reaction, with clarity rather than confusion, and with strength that is quiet, firm, and unshaken. Abandon of purpose, timing, and direction is essential for a life that moves forward with meaning rather than motion. Many people are busy yet internally unfulfilled because their actions are disconnected from purpose or rushed ahead of timing. Purpose answers the question of why, direction answers the question of where, and timing answers the question of when. When these three are misaligned, effort is wasted and frustration grows. When they are aligned, even demanding seasons carry a sense of peace. Purpose gives weight to action. It turns ordinary tasks into meaningful steps and prevents the heart from drifting. Without purpose, people chase validation, comparison, or survival. They move constantly but feel empty, because movement without meaning eventually exhausts the soul. Alignment restores focus. It reminds the heart of what truly matters and filters out distractions that pull energy away from what is essential. Direction then provides clarity. It channels purpose into specific paths and decisions. Without direction, good intentions scatter. People know they want more, but they do not know where to invest their time or energy. Direction brings coherence. It allows a person to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It simplifies life by creating boundaries that protect focus. Timing is often the most difficult aspect of alignment. Many frustrations come not from wrong desires, but from right desires pursued too early or too late. Acting before the right time leads to strain and disappointment. Delaying too long leads to regret and stagnation. Proper timing creates flow. It allows effort to be met with favor rather than resistance. Alignment with timing teaches patience without passivity and action without haste. When purpose, direction, and timing align, confidence replaces confusion. Decisions no longer feel forced. Progress feels natural rather than strained. Even setbacks are interpreted differently. They are seen as adjustments, not failures. This perspective protects hope and prevents burnout. This alignment also brings inner rest. The heart no longer compares itself to others or measures success by speed. It understands that growth is personal and seasons differ. This awareness builds resilience. It keeps the soul steady even when results are delayed. Over time, aligned living produces fruit that lasts. Character matures alongside achievement. Joy is sustained, not borrowed from outcomes. The person becomes rooted rather than restless. Life is no longer about chasing every opportunity, but about honoring the right ones. When alignment is present, the path ahead feels clear, even when it is challenging. The heart moves forward with assurance, not because everything is known, but because purpose anchors, direction guides, and timing protects. In that harmony, life unfolds with depth, clarity, and quiet confidence. Preservation from error, harm, and spiritual fatigue is a quiet but vital dimension of daily life. Many setbacks are not dramatic or sudden. They are the result of small missteps repeated over time. Errors often begin with tired judgment, divided attention, or unchecked emotion. Harm can come through careless words, wrong associations, or moments of vulnerability. Spiritual fatigue sets in when the inner life is neglected while external demands continue to increase. Preservation addresses these dangers before they fully form. Error is rarely intentional. Most mistakes happen when clarity is compromised. Fatigue clouds discernment. Pressure accelerates decisions, and familiarity dulls caution. Preservation works by sharpening awareness. It keeps the heart alert without making it anxious. It reminds the soul to slow down, to check motives, and to seek guidance before acting. This attentiveness quietly saves people from paths that would cost them peace and progress. Harm often comes through exposure. Constant interaction with negativity, conflict, or unhealthy influences slowly erodes emotional and spiritual stability. Without preservation, the heart absorbs more than it realizes. Over time, cynicism replaces hope, irritation replaces patience, and compromise replaces conviction. Preservation acts as a boundary. It filters what is allowed to shape the inner world. This protection does not isolate a person, it stabilizes them so they can engage without being damaged. Spiritual fatigue is one of the most dangerous forms of weariness because it develops quietly. A person may still function, still perform, and still appear strong, yet inwardly feel drained and disconnected. When fatigue deepens, joy fades, passion weakens, and resilience declines. Preservation renews strength. It restores perspective and reconnects the heart to its source of life. This renewal prevents burnout and protects long-term endurance. Preservation also guards consistency. Many people start well, but struggle to sustain. Early enthusiasm is often replaced by routine pressure. Without preservation, the soul begins to leak energy faster than it is replenished. With preservation, balance is restored, rest is honored, reflection is practiced, and renewal becomes intentional. As preservation becomes part of daily life, confidence grows. The person becomes less reckless and more grounded. They are not driven by impulse or fear. They move thoughtfully, aware that their inner life matters as much as their outer achievements. This awareness reduces regret and increases peace. Life will always carry risk and demand effort. The preservation ensures that the cost is not the soul itself. It allows a person to move forward wisely, protected from unnecessary damage, sustained through pressure, and strengthened for the long journey ahead with clarity, endurance, and quiet assurance. Sensitivity to divine instruction is the ability to perceive guidance beyond logic, routine, or emotion. It is not about hearing dramatic voices or experiencing constant signs. but about developing an inner awareness that recognizes direction even when it comes quietly. Many people miss guidance not because it is absent, but because life is too noisy for them to notice. Sensitivity, thank you, begins with stillness and is sustained by attention. Divine instruction often comes as a gentle nudge, an inner hesitation, or a sudden clarity that does not originate from reasoning alone. When a person is sensitive, they learn to respect these moments. They pause when something feels unsettled and move when there is peace. This attentiveness prevents unnecessary struggles and redirects effort toward what is fruitful. Ignoring such instruction often leads to frustration that could have been avoided. Sensitivity also requires humility. It means accepting that knowledge is limited and that guidance is needed even in familiar situations. Overconfidence dulls perception. When a person assumes they already know, they stop listening. Sensitivity keeps the heart teachable. It allows learning to continue and correction to be welcomed. This posture protects growth and maturity. Throughout the day, many decisions seem small, yet their accumulation shapes direction. Sensitivity to instruction helps with these subtle choices. It influences conversations, timing, and responses. It teaches when to speak and when silence will preserve peace. It guides which opportunities to pursue and which to release. Over time, this guidance produces a life that feels ordered rather than chaotic. Sensitivity also deepens trust. As a person learns to follow gentle instruction, they begin to see its value. They notice how certain decisions spare them harm or position them for unexpected favor. This experience builds confidence in guidance rather than dependence on impulse. Faith becomes practical, expressed through daily obedience rather than occasional inspiration. Distraction is one of the greatest threats to sensitivity. Constant noise, hurry, and emotional overload numb perception. Sensitivity requires margin. It thrives where reflection is practiced and inner quiet is valued. This D does not mean withdrawing from life, but engaging it with awareness. A sensitive heart remains present rather than scattered. As sensitivity grows, life becomes more responsive than reactive. Decisions are made with calm assurance. Pressure loses its control. Even uncertainty feels manageable because direction is trusted. The person is no longer forcing outcomes but cooperating with guidance. This way of living brings peace, not because everything is predictable, but because the heart knows it is being led. Sensitivity to divine instruction transforms ordinary days into purposeful journeys marked by clarity, restraint, and confidence in each step taken forward. Power to reflect light, character, and integrity is not expressed through loud declarations, but through consistent presence. It is the quiet influence of a life that is aligned internally and therefore credible externally. Light is not something that is forced. It naturally shines when the inner life is healthy. When character is formed in private, it becomes visible in public without effort. Reflecting light begins with authenticity. People sense when actions and intentions are aligned. Integrity is not perfection, but consistency. It is the courage to live by the same values regardless of who is watching. Consistency builds trust. It gives weight to words and depth to relationships. A person who reflects light does not need to convince others. Their life communicates for them. Character is often revealed in small moments. How one treats people without status, how one responds under pressure, and how one handles inconvenience. All expose what truly governs the heart. These moments may seem insignificant, but they shape reputation and influence. Reflecting light means allowing grace, patience, and humility to guide behavior, even when it is costly. Integrity also protects the soul. When actions align, convictions, inner peace is preserved. Many people experience internal conflict because they live divided lives. What they believe and what they practice are disconnected. Integrity closes that gap. It brings wholeness. This wholeness produces confidence that is calm and steady, not dependent on approval. Reflecting light does not mean avoiding difficulty or pretending to be strong. It means carrying truth with compassion. It allows vulnerability without compromise and strength without pride. This balance creates safe spaces for others. People are drawn not to perfection, but to sincerity. Light makes room for honesty without judgment. The power to reflect light also influences environments. A person of integrity changes the atmosphere simply by being present. Conflict de-escalates, tension softens, and conversations deepen. This influence is subtle but lasting. It does not manipulate, it stabilizes. Over time, this reflection shapes legacy. Long after achievements fade, character remains. People may forget what was said or accomplished, but they remember how they felt in someone's presence. Light leaves an imprint. Integrity builds a foundation that outlasts seasons. Living this way requires daily alignment. It is a choice made repeatedly, often unnoticed, yet its impact is profound. The person becomes a reference point of trust and peace. Their life becomes a quiet testimony that integrity is strength, character is influence, and light, when consistently reflected, has the power to guide others even in the darkest moments. Ending the day fulfilled rather than empty is the result of how the day was entered, navigated, and interpreted. Many people reach the end of the day physically tired but emotionally restless, mentally replaying conversations, regretting decisions, or feeling like they gave everything away and kept nothing for themselves. Fulfillment is not about how much was accomplished, but about whether the soul remained aligned while accomplishing it. A fulfilled ending comes from intentional living. When the day is lived with awareness, choices are made with purpose rather than pressure. Energy is invested, not wasted. Even when the workload is heavy, the heart does not feel drained in a destructive way. There is a difference between being tired and being empty. Tiredness can be restored with rest, but emptiness comes from living disconnected from meaning. Many people end their days empty because they spend the day reacting. They respond to demands, emotions, expectations, and crises without pause. In this state, the soul is constantly giving but never receiving. Fulfillment requires moments of alignment throughout the day, where the heart checks in, recenters, and remembers what truly matters. These moments protect inner reserves. Ending the day fulfilled also involves peace with imperfection. Not every goal will be completed, not every problem solved, and not every outcome ideal. Fulfillment does not demand a perfect day. It comes from knowing that the day was handled with integrity, effort, and trust. When a person elicits the need to control every result, regret loses its grip. Reflection plays a role in fulfillment. When the day is acknowledged rather than rushed past, lessons are gathered instead of lost. Gratitude replaces frustration. Growth is recognized even in difficulty. This reflection turns experiences into wisdom and prevents emotional clutter from carrying over into the next day. Fulfillment is also connected to boundaries. A person who never rests, never says no, and never pauses will eventually feel depleted. Ending the day fulfilled requires respecting limits. It means knowing when to stop, when to disconnect, and when to be still. These choices honor the soul and preserve long-term strength. There is a quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing the day was lived honestly. Words were spoken thoughtfully. Decisions were made carefully. Character was maintained under pressure. Even if the day was challenging, there is no inner accusation. This peace allows rest to be deep rather than restless. When the day ends fulfilled, sleep becomes restorative, not escapist. The heart is settled, not scattered. There is a sense of completion, even if work remains. The soul is not carrying unresolved weight. Ending the day this way prepares the heart for tomorrow, not with anxiety, but with readiness, trust, and quiet confidence that life is being lived with purpose rather than being merely survived.